Here we are waiting for the judge's decision, but we're still waiting to actually see the part that's going to be unsealed. It was June of 1995 when Jodi Huisentruit disappeared while heading out for her morning news anchor shift. So it was bizarre when investigators filed a search warrant 22 years later for 2 cars belonging to John Van Cise, a friend who last saw Jodi alive before she vanished. We still don't know what prompted investigators to do that, but we may get bits of new information soon after the judge's ruling today.
Good Thursday morning. Welcome to Daybreak.
It's been nearly 30 years since the beloved Iowa news anchor was seemingly abducted outside her apartment as she was heading into work. An Iowa judge now ordering a search warrant in the Jodi Huisentruit case to be partially unsealed, but stopping short of letting the public see an affidavit that would describe exactly what investigators have in the cold case.
Keep going back to day one. What was said, what was observed, what was found at the scene. There must be things that we just don't know.
Caroline Lowe is part of the Find Jodi team as an investigative journalist. Jodi's family wanted to keep the search warrant sealed, fearing the information being released could compromise the investigation. But one man's family wanted everything out in the open, loved ones of John Van Cise. Van Cise was a friend of Jodi's and said he was the last to see her when she visited his home to watch a birthday video the night before she disappeared. Van Cise moved to Phoenix years later and was named a person of interest in the case. Now we know that decades later, investigators were granted a search warrant to put GPS tracking devices on 2 of Van Cise's cars as he prepared to travel from Arizona to Iowa, cars that didn't exist at the time of Jodi's disappearance.
We know that Van Cise was subpoenaed by a federal grand jury at that same time to come back to Iowa to provide fingerprints, palm prints, DNA, things that he could have done, mind you, in Phoenix, but they brought him back there. So was this some kind of an attempt to observe him? We don't know.
Detectives say just because Van Cise is dead does not mean this investigation is any less active. And with the judge unsealing parts of the search warrant soon, we may learn a bit more, but likely not enough to solve the case unless new information comes to light.
Everyone involved in this needs answers, but particularly Jodi's family.
Now, the judge's orders say that partial unseal will be available in 31 days. The Mason City, Iowa police chief has gone on the record in the past saying nothing substantial came from those car search warrants, but did not confirm why they sought them in the first place. It's a question we've had for a long time now.
Boy, talk about vanished without a trace. No body, nothing really ever found. But you cover a lot of these cold cases all these years later. Is there a chance they might be able to link something to some piece of evidence?
There's always a chance. And talking to Caroline, who's part of the Find Jodi team, she's covered a lot of cases where there's a serial killer that gave a confession, and that linked to another case. You have DNA that plays a part. You have other things that could come to light years later. Sometimes you have people that will confess something for a plea deal on a different charge. You just never know. She's seen it happen in multiple high-profile cases, and that's the thing. Just because John Van Cise has died does not mean that this investigation stops by any means. But it is hard. You know, we've spent a lot of time here. CBS 48 Hours spent a lot of time looking into this. We've talked to John Van Cise. We've knocked on his door, and we just got no answers during that. But I do understand his side of the story and his side of the family, too, saying we want these unsealed because they want to try to exonerate him from any sort of public guilt that has been there. Exactly, right. So we just won't know, and it's likely that that part will not be unsealed for a long time. But it is very clear that there is a reason why they are not releasing that affidavit. A lot of times in cold cases, you see them release something like that. Maybe somebody saw something. Maybe that new piece of information will help. But there is something that they do not want the public to see right now that would compromise the investigation. Likely something they found either at the crime scene or something that they know only the killer or the abductee would know.
They're holding it close.
Yeah.
All right, Briana, Whitney, thank you.